Good afternoon, folks. This is Wager Detective coming back at you. July 17th, 2026. We're going to get into this WNBA cap. I'll be as brief as possible. Before we get into that, be sure to follow Wager Detective on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Set alerts on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, leave comments and likes, and share the video, folks. Wager Detective loves all his fans out there, present and future. Let's get into this cap. The Dream versus the Tempo. First off, the money line, the Dream are minus 385 and minus 9.5. The Tempo are coming back at plus 290 and plus 9.5. The 9.5 is shaded to minus 120. When we look at the Dream, they're scoring 88.3 points a game, puts them at 7th best in the WNBA, and they're giving up 84.8 points a game, puts them at 5th best. They do have the 4th best pace in the WNBA, and their offensive rating is 109.9, puts them at 7th. Their defensive rating puts them at 4th in the WNBA. Their net rating is plus 4.4 on the net rating. They have beaten the Toronto Tempo twice, 94-87, and then they went to the Tempo and won 102-77 earlier this year. Let's get into what the Dream have done this year. They're coming off a 3-day off win. They're coming off 3 days off. Their last game was against the Sparks. They won 101-92. And on the road this year, they are 6-6. They've lost 4 straight road games, 2 over and 10 under in their 12 road games this year, plus 4 point differential, scoring 83.8 points a game to 83.4. We isolated to their last 5 road games. They are 1-4, 2 over, 3 under, minus 27 point differential, scoring 83 points a game to 88.4. Now, if we look at what they've done last night overall, they are 3-6, 3 over and 6 under in those games, minus 23. The over-under on this game is 181.5, shaded to the over at minus 114. So 3-6 for the Dream in their last 9 games overall, 3 over, 6 under, and minus 23 point differential. They're scoring 85.1 points a game to 87.7 for their opponents. If we look at their last 5 overall, they are 2-3. The point differential is even, scoring 88.2 points a game to their opponents 88.2. Comes out to 176.4 points per game. Now, if we look at what they've done on 3 to 4 days off, they are 3-2. So whenever they've had 3 to 4 days off in between games, they're 3-2 this year, plus 34 point differential. In those games where they have 3 or 4 days off, like they'll be here on 4 days off, they're scoring 89 points a game to 82.2. It comes out to a plus 6.8 points per game average between their wins and losses in those games. So these WNBA games are going to be a little bit more shorter of a cap because you're not dealing with a lot of numbers with the amount of volume that you are in WNBA. So if we look at that side of the cap, do you think the Dream should be minus 385? First of all, let's look at what that is, what the books are saying. We'll do the implied probability, plus 385. They're saying they have a 79.4 chance to win this game. So a 79% chance, even if you take out a couple percent for the hold the books add to their numbers, they're still saying 77% of the time they're going to win this game. Now, they have beat them 2 in a row, but when we look at this, we get into this cap further, we'll see why that number might be too high. Okay, so the Tempo are co-owned by Serena Williams and also Kyle Lowry. So they're in good hands. They have good ownership, and the coach Sandy Brondello is a great coach. A 281 and 195 record. He is a 2-time WNBA champ. He was the Eastern Conference champ in his career. He's been the Western Conference champ in his career, and he was 27-17 last year with the Liberty. And you look at Toronto, they're not really having the best year. I think they're 10-14. The Dream are 14-10. So he was 27-17 last year, and in his last 4 years with the Dream, he does have 11-7 record versus the Dream, plus 67 point differential. And if we scoring 84.5 points a game to 80.8 for the Dream, so he has a good overall career record versus the Dream when he was with the Liberty for 4 years. And even in his last 9, he is 4-5. He's lost 3 straight as a head coach versus the Dream. 2 of those games being this year. but he is 4-5 in his last 9, and in his last 9 against the Liberty, against the Dream, scoring 79.6 to 82.9. So if you take his career with the Liberty, and then career with the Tempo versus the Dream, from his time with the Liberty to time this year, his teams are averaging 82 points a game to 81.9 for the Dream. Now, I do not believe that the Dream are just going to come out and score 102 or 94 like they did in the 2 games versus the Tempo this year. I think those numbers, I think the total is too high, but that is what Sandy Brondello has done and who he is. He's a 2-time WNBA champ. He's won the Eastern Conference. He's an Eastern Conference champion. He's a Western Conference champion, and he was 27-17 last year. So you look at their record, 10-14. Not a bad team. They are missing a couple players that we'll talk about later. Going into this game, as you can see on the screen, Kiki Rice and Sykes are both out for this game. If we look at the Tempo this year, they are 10-14. Averaging 88.6 points a game, puts them at 6th best in the WNBA. They're giving up 91.5 points a game, puts them 14th. Their pace is 5th best in the WNBA with about 80 possessions a game. And if we look at their offensive rating, they are 6th, and their defensive rating is 15th. Now, you saw their last game. Their last game, they only gave up 79 points, which was their 3rd best defensive effort of the year. Out of 24 games. So does Sandy Brondello maybe trying to slow up the pace a little bit to let his team just stay in games close enough to it where at the end they can pick up the pace and win the game? So at home this year, they are 6-8, minus 22 point differential. In those 8 losses, they are 3-5 against the spread of that plus 9.5. And in their 14 home games this year, 4 over and 10 under, scoring 85.6 points a game to 87 for their opponents. Comes out to 172.7 points a game. And again, they're averaging 85.6. In those 14 games, they've scored 86 or better 7 times. And the 87 that they're giving up on average, they've given up that number 8 times out of 14 games. So they're scoring, teams are scoring, but they're covering that spread primarily against that 9.5. Now, if we look at their last 7, we isolate to their last 7 at home. They're 2-5, minus 30 point differential, scoring 86 points a game, 86.5 to 91 for their opponents. So they're scoring roughly the same, but their opponents over their last 7, compared to their last 14, they're giving up 87. Now their last 7 at home, they're giving up 91. So the defense has kind of regressed over the last 7 by about 4 points. If we look at their last 10 home games, or no, excuse me, their last 10 overall, last 7 home, last 14, so home on the year 14, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so in this game they are going to have in their last 10 games, they're scoring 87 points a game to 90.7 for their opponents. And if we look at what they're doing in their last 5 at home, they are 1-4. Or no, they're 1-4 in their last 5 overall, minus 48 point differential, scoring 80.2 points a game to 89.8. Comes out to 169.8. So I expect them, after the game that they just had where they only scored 64 points, that they're going to come out and play. They only scored 64 against the Mystics. It makes me think that the WNBA is fixed, because this team was scoring so much, and then all of a sudden, what a drop-off. They were up by 6 points at the halftime, and then they somehow came out in the second half, and they were plus 6 in the first half versus the Mystics in their last game, and then minus 23 in the second half. It just didn't. I believe, and I'm going to say this once again, I do believe the WNBA, just like all sports, there's some kind of, I don't know what to call it, man. You know, the rims got magnets on them, whatever you want to call it. When shit don't go my way and things aren't looking like I wrote them out, I am going to 1,000% call it out as, we'll call that an outlier game. This game, we're not going to expect an outlier game. They are going to score here. And if they don't, my theory is correct. Cannot blame it on circumstance or this, that, the other. The numbers are just completely wild. If you go back to the Wager Detective report on the Tempo versus the Mystics, I posted all those stats, and guess what? In the first half it was looking good. Second half they came out and was like it was a totally different team altogether. So they're going to be on Tempo. We're going to be on 2 days off here. Sorry for that rant. And when they're 2 days off and they're playing at home, they are 1-5, scoring 81.4 points a game to 93.8 for their opponents. And that's not good. One of those games on 1 day off at home was against the Dream, where they did lose that game that we talked about, 102-77. And if we look at what they've done against the East this year, they are 5-7 versus Eastern Conference teams, and out of those 7 losses, they are 3-4 against the spread, scoring 87 points a game to 91.6 for their opponents. Comes out to a minus 4.58 points per game average between their wins and losses, and the average score in those 12 games versus the East is 178.5. Now their last 5 versus the East, they're scoring their minus 40 point differential and scoring 86.8 points a game to 94.8 for their opponents. That comes out to a minus 8 points per game average between their wins and losses, and the average score is coming out to 181.6. Now, again, the lowest score of the year that they had was their very last game. They scored 62 points versus the Mystics, all right, which is off their average in home games this year, which we said is 85.6. They 85, 75, 65, 23 points less than their average. They're going to score here. I might even look at their team total over here, okay? Now, and if it doesn't reach, like I said, I am going to be on social media pretty much absolutely tearing down the sport in any which way I can, uncovering whatever facts I can to find out why that is, because I'm not buying that it's an outlier game. Okay, so when we get to that, the lowest scoring game of the year was last game, where they scored 62 versus the Mystics. Last game, they scored 20. They were 23 for 65 for 35% from the field goal, 7 for 26 from 3-point. They were rebounded 26 to 47. Okay, their bench had 22 points in 59 minutes. I just don't know if that's if I can get down with that. I just don't know if I can get down with those numbers. Now, they're going to be without Sykes, and they're going to be without Kiki Rice. Now, in both those games, they are without both those players in the lineup combined. Okay, so without Kiki Rice, we know Sykes is averaging 20 points a game, which is the highest of her career in 15 game start this year, and that was in 31.8 minutes. Kiki Rice was averaging 12.7 points per game in 26 minutes. Okay, they're both expected to return around July 28th, and Kiki Rice has been out since June 7th, and the team is 7-7 without her, and they're 3-4 against the spread in those losses. Without Sykes, they are 3-6. In those 6 losses, they're 3-3 against the spread. Without both of them in the lineup, they are 10-13, and they are 6-7 against the spread in the losses without both these players in there. So I just believe that the coach, like we said, Brondello is going to have a game plan here. I expect them to come out and play. I expect them to cover this 9.5. I would not be surprised if they won the game. I know that they have 2 players out. I want to see what the line is currently on this game. If we can get that WNBA, let's take a look here. And we look at the Dream and the Tempo. Spread is still the same. The money line went up 15 cents. I want to see what the team total is, team props for the home team here. So they got them at 86.5. They scored 62 in their last game. I think that number could be a little high, 86.5, and they're basically saying at a 9.5 that the other team's going to score 95. I mean, you might even want to say the away team 95.5. I don't see it happening here. They scored 94 in the first meeting and 102 already at the tempo. I do not believe, bro. If I'm going to look at this, I just don't see it happening. Guys, I would lean towards the Atlanta Dream team total under. But I think the stronger play here is the... Let me see if I can find an alternate spread here. Let me see. Because the 9.5 is too much. You don't want to lay minus 120 with that. Let me see here if we can get a better number with the tempo plus. You could get the tempo at plus 8.5 at minus 104. I would bring that down. So that's going to be the call here. Move the line off the 9.5, move it to 8.5, and I do believe. I mean, they covered the one spread in the one game where they lost 94 to 87. They lost by 7, and then the other meeting, which was in Toronto, they lost 102 to 77. We're not going to see a repeat of that. I just don't think that the Dream are playing good recently. They're still scoring. They're scoring last 5 overall. They're scoring 88.2. Last 9 overall, they're scoring 85.1. And on 2 days off, or 3 to 4 days off, they're scoring 89 points a game. I just think it's ridiculous to think that they're going to get there. I think you're going to see a better offensive performance from the tempo. I think they're going to stay in the game. So that's going to be the call here, guys. Move the line to 8.5. Move it off the 9.5 at minus 120. Move it to 8.5 and make it minus 104. I think it'll be competitive. I think it'll be close. I would not be surprised if the tempo win the game, even without their 2 stars in there. Because, like we said, without both their stars in there, they are 10-13 without both of them in there, and they are 3-3 against that spread of the 9.5. When with both of them. Without both of them in there, they are against the spread. They are 3-4. They're 6-7 in those 13 games without both these players. They're 6-7 against the spread of that 9.5 without both of them in there. So, and they got a 10-13 record without both of them in there. So they've shown that they can do it. They had a bad game, the outlier game. I think I wouldn't touch the over/under on the for the tempo. I would just say I would move that line from 9.5, move it to 8.5, and have a minus 104 there. So you're still getting pretty good value. Might even ladder it if you want. But that's the call here. Today is July 17th, 2026. Wager Detective calling the tempo on an alternate line plus 8.5, move it from 9.5 to 8.5 and get, instead of it being minus 120, you get it at minus 104 on the 8.5. And as far as an over-under, I just don't see how we're going to get to 181.5. I'm going to call the under here as well. I just don't see. I think the tempo tried to play a little bit better defensively, had their best defensive outing last time, and I think the coach knows he's going to have to play a little bit more slower tempo to be able to stay in this game and maybe pick it up late. Maybe you catch a live line over once it drops down. I definitely like the under. So that's the call here. July 17, 2026, Dream versus Tempo. Wager Detective calling for the move of 9.5 to the alternate line of 8.5 on FanDuel. You get minus 104 instead of the current line of minus 120. And then also take the under 181.5. This is Wager Detective. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Set alerts on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and leave comments everywhere, like everywhere, and share the video, guys. You're helping Wager Detective continue his dream and motivate me, and I love you guys out there. Thank you for supporting me, and I'll talk to you soon.